We're back with the studio, and the next speaker, we are connected. So, hi, Ben.
Hi, Igor. Good to be here. How are
Yeah,
you doing?
thanks for coming. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very good.
All right. Quick question. Where are you located right now? In Hamburg?
Despite what you can see behind me, I'm in Berlin right now, where I live. I do like Hamburg, but Berlin is where the heart is.
Yeah, sure. I'd wish to go to Berlin or Hamburg right now, but still can't. So, all right, let's get to your presentation. We are looking forward to it, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. All right, let's get started then. So I want to set the scene a bit, and it's obvious to all of you, I assume, but the mobile landscape has never been so competitive. This has been driven by a number of factors that have come together over the last few years, which we might say have created an imperfect storm for mobile app marketers. So you have, on the one hand, you have an influx of VC investment that created this frothy app economy, and you have many apps that are then happy to spend aggressively to grow their audiences and app store presence. And on top of that, many non-digital businesses, high street retailers, for example, and banks, have significantly increased investment into mobile, and they continue to progress this spend due to their digital transformation agenda. And to add to all of this, we've seen the impact of COVID-19. I guess very few people can ignore the fact that it had an extreme impact on the economy as well as consumer behavior. And consumers basically need to now shop, live, interact, and generally survive remotely, which means that digital proficiency has never been so important. The result is a crowded market for user attention in terms of both media and app store presence. And the implications of this is that mobile marketers need a sophisticated arsenal of marketing technology tools to compete. All right, so as many commentators have highlighted in the last 5 to 10 years or so, it's not just about tech. And I guess that's the good news for all of us here. We are people, and there's value that we add. And so in reality, it's a combination of tech, team, and cultural mindset that come together to create successful high growth businesses. And so I'm going to start to talk a little bit about the MarTech stack, the tools themselves that power app growth in marketing. And then we'll look at how some of the most successful companies have innovated against traditional organizational structures to help them accelerate growth. And lastly, we'll take a look at how these businesses approach growth itself from a cultural perspective. But first, let's take a look at AppsFlyer. We are a data company, a measurement company. And given that we like data, I thought it makes sense to show you some numbers. If I look at the 1 trillion events measured per month, that is something that impresses me every time I see it, and it's something I can't get my head around quite. But this is what we're talking about with regards to AppsFlyer. And briefly about who I am, I'm Ben, and I was fortunate enough to be given the task of opening AppsFlyer's Berlin office back in 2016. and have since assembled what I believe is an amazing group of talented and fun people that serve the Central European region here from Berlin, as I mentioned earlier. And I actually think some of you in the audience, if I look, can see you guys. Keep smiling. So let's get started. First up, we want to talk about some technology trends that are driving the growth right now. When we look at the data from the last couple of years, we see that these highly competitive market conditions are forcing mobile marketers to increase their investment in paid media in order to acquire users. The smaller, or by definition, newer an app is, the more heavily it will rely on paid media to drive installs. But this remains true throughout all sizes of the app, that the percentage of user acquired thanks to paid campaigns versus organic acquisition is increasing. At an aggregate level, across all app sizes, paid downloads as a percentage of the overall user base grew from 51% in 2018 to 58% in 2019. And this is significant growth in just 1 year. And this is what is driving the MarTech arms race at present. As you can see, that according to a survey ran by Ascend2 in March 2019, 89% of marketers were increasing their investment in MarTech, with 67% of them doing so on a quarterly basis. This is a staggering pace of change for any business and highlights just how serious marketers are taking the challenge of ensuring that their tech stack is best in class. And the survey went on to unpick the drivers for this surge in investment and activity. And it's no surprise to see that the key motivations were increasing efficiency and ROI, helping drive decision-making, and a number of other important factors, such as improving the security and robustness of the underlying platforms. I'm going to take a sip of water. Now, the pace and scale of this arms race all sound quite daunting, but there's some good news. There are a host of solutions that help with like campaign orchestration and automation, measurement, analytics, so simply help connecting the various pipes together. And I just read this morning that Microsoft is adding yet another tool to the mix. I believe they've just launched in the US only a campaign automation tool for SMB companies to manage their marketing campaigns. And these tools are feature-rich, highly interoperable, available throughout the user funnel, and will create a significant amount of data with which you can optimize your mobile business. Furthermore, as well as witnessing the smart tech arms race in the last few years, we're also seeing that traditional UA is increasingly being automated. So if you think about your own marketing mix, and Facebook and Google should be probably dominating that, as we see with most companies, they are increasingly automating the traditional role of the UA manager. And there are many other campaign automation tools available that mean it's no longer necessary for marketers to perform some of the traditional campaign trafficking and optimization tasks. So the question is like, what does that mean for mobile marketers? And I think it's obvious that there's less time with the campaign trafficking, which leaves more time to spend on the creative aspects, but also working deeper in the funnel to optimize UA towards high quality traffic. So with marketers optimizing towards deeper funnel events, such as registration and purchases, this results in a need for greater alignment between marketing and product and tech, and ideally in the form of growth squads that share KPIs. So let's take a look at how technology companies are going about this change. As I mentioned a moment ago, teams are increasingly obliged to work together, and Brian Balfour highlights this perfectly in this quote. For those of you unfamiliar with Brian Balfour, he's the ex-VP growth at HubSpot and one of the leading experts in the field of growth strategy. One of the models he uses to explain this process is the growth versus traction matrix, which highlights the increased complexity in organizational structure that comes when businesses move through traction into transition and ultimately into the growth mode. This model begins to highlight just how important an organizational structure is at impacting growth within a business that has already found early traction. I hope most of you are familiar with Andy Carville's mobile growth stack. And if not, then I encourage you to go check it out. But the reason why I'm showing this is to just show you how complex the world of mobile marketing has become. And as companies grow and have more resources, be it financial, human, technological, they find themselves in a position to tackle this increased complexity. And however, it's only possible if they also rethink the traditional team structures. So as businesses move from early stage startup mode, they often recognize the need to re-platform, re-architect, refactoring is a term that is mentioned sometimes with regards to their technology. So I've been working in several technology businesses, and I've seen this process of refactoring happening every few years. And this is normal and accepted. So what happens often is that the platform is kind of held together by hacks, and nobody dares to touch code. I don't know if you've experienced that ever, but you ask one of the engineers or the product guys and say, yeah, we don't quite know what will happen if we touch this code and what effects it will have on other parts of the platform. And so nobody dares to touch it. And then obviously this pain grows and people need to change things. And you end up with a mess that becomes increasingly difficult to manage and iterate on, which looks a bit like this ball of rubber bands that you see in front of you. And that said, so people companies recognize that need because it's becoming painful. But far fewer businesses either recognize the need to restructure their human resources and operating practices, or are brave enough to commit fully to doing so. It was companies such as Facebook and Spotify that really pioneered growth teams within the technology space. And as you can see from the well-known model that Spotify created, it can be highly complex. So Spotify's model, complete with guilds, tribes, chapters, alliances, and squads, was complex, but was also highly successful. So for me, what is most important to take away here is that it's a customized solution, and that the business as a whole was really committed to the structural reorganization. It's important to know that it doesn't need to be this complex. But what it does need to be, it needs to be customized to your business. So around 2015, inspired by the growth of many of the Silicon Valley's brightest tech companies, again, Andy Cavell, who is ex-SoundCloud, by the way, audited a number of these organizations to see how they had developed cross-functional teams. And as you can see, there's not one consistent model, but instead a bespoke team that's right for each business. Well, we can take some direction from Andrew McInnes and the two key models he outlines in his writing on growth teams. Andrew is ex-Zynga and Facebook. And he identified three key models that can be broadly split into two categories. You have the independent teams led by VP Growth, which often act as like a standalone unit, a business within a business that can work on whatever they choose. Or you have the more functional-led model, which will often report to a VP product, but may well have a number of marketing functions integrated into it. So finally, on another extremely well-made point to take into account by Eric Seufert, when creating cross-functional teams, we want to be careful not to create new silos, i.e. that the growth team should operate horizontally across the user journey and not vertically, for example, only focusing on acquisition or product features. All right. So let's take a look at how successful technologies companies behave and think, and what are the common characteristics of their company culture and the values they instill in the growth teams. Firstly, I want to take a sip. The key characteristics of autonomy, authority, communication, and trust are critical. For growth teams to succeed, they need to have the ability and the mandate to execute. This mandate needs to be fully understood by the entire business. The mandate needs to be communicated in such a way that it creates trust in this team. So most often the trust that the team is going to act in the best interest of the company, obviously, and the end users, and that it shouldn't break anything. So secondly, let's look at the characters themselves. Well, there are few key and obvious players, such as engineering, product, and marketing. But if the business is committed and wants to maximize the impact of the new team, then this full list of players is just as much of importance. So the key we saw on the last slide is creating an autonomous unit, this business and business idea. You need to keep that in mind. And next up, the entire business must be brought into the process. As we saw earlier, a successful growth team must be empowered and trusted, and the management of the business really, they need to get behind it, and they need to take responsibility for enabling this. So like a top-down support is really essential to make this work. And then it is crucial that the growth team is the primary responsibility of its members, and it's not just a side project. I've seen sometimes this not exactly being implemented, and it does really cause issues. So the commitment is required. Otherwise, people simply default to their like comfortable known silo rather than putting the energy into something that's like new and perhaps a little uncomfortable to begin with. By having like a data-driven process that balances the company's goals with customer-centric KPIs that deliver long-term value, that's the most likely, the process will most likely succeed that way. So the impact must not be on short-term KPI bumps. You need to think long-term. You need to have data to support the decisions, and people need to be bought into it. All right. So to summarize, no one particular element makes a successful technology business. The tech, the people, the organizational culture are all essential ingredients. However, what we can say is that the cross-functional teams, while they're complex, are core characteristics of many of the most successful technology companies in the world. And transitioning can take time to get right. It might be a culture shock to begin with. It can involve significant change, taking people out of their departmental comfort zones. However, if it's done well, there are just a host of benefits in terms of agility, speed of execution, greater strategic focus, and an increase in the sense of ownership, accountability throughout the organization. All of this adds up to create like a true competitive advantage at a time when the market has never been so competitive, as we once spoke about earlier. I'll leave you with one final thought. So if done well, you will not only unlock growth, but also meaningfully improve the company culture. A growing organization with a strong culture makes long-term success highly likely. And in such a competitive and challenging landscape, achieving this must surely be well worth the effort. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ben. Yeah, thanks for this presentation and thanks for sharing the wisdom. It was a good one, and we have to round up. So I'll kindly ask you to go to the lecture session on wnhub.io to chat with the audience a little bit and discuss some questions if they have any. Okay?
Thank you.
And also, yeah, guys, if you have any questions to AppsFlyer team or Ben directly, go reach out to them on WNHub platform. And the guys also have a booth on the Expo Zone. So go click on it and start chatting with AppsFlyer team. They will help you out. Thanks once again, Ben, and take care.
Thank you, Igor.